Hey, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. Today I thought I'd have a bit of a chat about being an owner builder. Some of you out there might not even know what an owner builder is, so basically the name's pretty clear. So an owner builder is someone that actually owns the house and they're looking at building, well, owning the block of land I suppose, and they're looking at building on the block of land. Or you can do a renovation and then you're an owner builder as well. Essentially any role that a builder will be required to do and you decide to do it yourself. So because a lot of people watch renovation shows and they get all excited, or they watch, the shows like Grand Designs where people go and design their house of their dreams and they decide to embark on it themselves. So a lot of the reasoning behind why someone would want to be an owner builder is because they think they're going to be able to save some money. It might be a general interest thing as well. They might be generally interested in undertaking the project because they think it's going to be exciting and fun and all the rest of it. But traditionally, a lot of people think, builders are going to charge them too much, and they feel like if they go and do it themselves, they're going to save their money on labour, and they're going to get all these cheap prices for materials, and they'll be able to recycle some materials somewhere, and so they think they're going to save some money along the way. So I suppose there's a few things to consider as far as being an owner builder. So the first thing to consider is trying to get finance. So how are you actually going to fund this thing? So typically, banks are pretty risk averse. They don't want to take a punt with their money they're going to lend you. So because of that, they're less likely to lend to owner builders, because traditionally owner builders are people that don't really know what they're doing. If you're a builder, you're not really an owner builder because you've got your own building company, you're out doing it for a living. So it's a bit different if you're actually a builder. And some builders build their own house. In that case, they probably are an owner builder. Most likely in that situation, they'd still probably go through their company because they've got all the systems and processes and all the tradies and stuff that can work for them. So it is a bit different if you're actually a builder yourself. But if you're not a builder and you're building your own house, banks are really skeptical of whether you have the skills and qualifications and experience. And this is not just based on some sort of prejudice. This is based on experience in the past. They've had so many times and so many experiences in the past where people that tried to build their own house, things have gone wrong, that they've decided that, well, we don't really want to lend money to owner builders. And what that means, they will lend you money, but they're gonna the percentage of money they're gonna lend you relative to the actual price of the house is going to be so much lower than otherwise would. So example-wise, generally banks will lend you about 80% of the value of the house. In some examples they'll lend you up to 95% about the value of the house. In that case, they're going to charge you something called mortgage insurance. In the case of an owner builder, they're going to lend you a lot less. It might only be 50 or 60% of the value of the house, or if at all. You might find some builders that won't be willing to lend to owner builders at all because they just find it far too risky. Now, I suppose that's a pretty good sign. If banks don't want to lend you money to build your house, they're purely doing this on a historical viewpoint and from a financial viewpoint. I understand you're really optimistic and you say, hey, I'm not like everybody else. But at the end of the day, the banks know what's happened in the past, and you should basically learn from their experience. If they think it's really risky being an owner builder, then maybe you should think about whether it's going to be risky too. Hey Darren, thanks for joining. So that's the first thing. Obviously the fact that the banks aren't willing to lend you money is probably a good sign it's relatively risky being an owner builder. So the next thing is, with anything, just like building, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So basically you learn by trial and error. And so you imagine building your own house. It might be several $100,000s to build this house. If you make a mistake along the way, this is your money it's costing you. So are you willing to risk your own financial cash that you've saved up just so you can learn? And I suppose the thing about that is, that's great if you're just doing it because you want to learn. But if this is just a one-off thing, you get to learn things, but are you going to get to do it again to get the benefit of learning that experience? And because, especially if it was an expensive lesson you've learned, then if you don't get to do it again, is it worth the cost, I suppose? So, if you're doing it just to learn for the sake of it, that's great, but you got to weigh up the cost and benefit for the whole learning experience. If you want to become a builder, and this is an easy way for you to become a builder, then definitely, give it a go. Get out there and learn and learn and learn, and because the more times you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and that experience is going to come in useful down the track when you're building houses for other people. So that's the next thing. And the other thing I'd probably point out is the fact that a lot of people think if they do it themselves, they can take shortcuts or do things a little bit easier than going through the whole regulations and requirements and builders. The thing to understand, the law applies to an owner builder in exactly the same way as if you own a building company. So all the legal requirements, statutory and all the standards and all the council rules and regulation, everything applies to you as an individual building your own house as it does to a builder building a house for somebody else. So understand their responsibilities. You got to warranty your work essentially. You've got to, and I know you're going to say, hey, well, that doesn't matter because I'm going to live in this house forever, so I'm not going to make a claim against myself if something goes wrong. Thing to understand, things change. You might be thinking I'm going to live here forever now, but who knows? Maybe you get a job on the other side of town or interstate, or maybe suddenly the house is too big for you or the house is too small for you. Things are going to change, and over time you decide to sell the property. Understand, if you move on and you've sold the property to somebody else, even if you hadn't had to warranty the property against yourself, that next person that's bought the property, they still have rights and warranties that are implied against you for the work you've done. So, even if you choose not to build the whole house, but let's say, you've got a builder to build your house, but you decide to do the stormwater yourself, or you decide to do the fencing yourself, or you decide to rainwater tank, or retaining walls or something like that. Something you think, well, I can just do that myself and save myself a little bit of money, and just let the builder do the house. Thing to understand, there is standards and requirements as far as fencing goes and retaining wall goes and stormwaters. And if you haven't done it as per the council requirements or the building codes and regulations, then you're liable if anything goes wrong down the track. So example wise, let's say you put a little retaining wall down the side of your house. Even if you haven't done it as per what's required by the standard, and it falls over or creates some sort of problem down the track, let's say it's had an effect on the structural integrity of your house, or even worse, the house of the neighbour next door, and let's say because that retaining wall hasn't held up and it's done what it's supposed to do, if that has an effect on the footings, then by rights the owner of the house next door can come back to you and say, hey, you haven't done that retaining wall as per required by council rules or building regulations, and so you're responsible. Likewise, probably even a more scary thing, a lot of people think they can do stormwater themselves, because at the end of the day, it's just a pipe, dig a trench, put some pipe down, take it to the road, and it shouldn't be a problem. The problem about stormwater is it's going to be underneath concrete when you put your paths down. And so if anything's gone wrong, if there's a slight little leak or you haven't done something as per what you're supposed to have done, it's relatively close to the footings of the house. So if there's any leaks over time, over years and years and years, just that slight little drip might actually undermine the footings of the house, and that cause major cracking. And you might, down the track, even if you've got a builder to build your house and you've just done the stormwater, if there's been cracking on your house, quite often you'll come back to the builder and say, hey, my footings of my house are cracked. What they'll do is send around an engineer or someone to go and analyse what the problem is. More often than not, it's some sort of water-related issue. They might come back and say, hey, it was because you hadn't done the stormwater correctly, so it's your responsibility. And then it's not our responsibility as far as the footings go. So then you've got this major cracking issue with your footings of the house because of the way you've done the stormwater, because you hadn't done it as per the council requirements with the building code. So, and you can imagine then trying to fix that after that. Obviously, firstly, you have to fix up the stormwater and dig up all the concrete and stuff. But secondly, how are you going to fix up this cracking of the house? It may be that it might not be fixable, or maybe it is, but it's going to be massively expensive. So I suppose what I'm trying to warn you about is, firstly, finance is going to be really difficult as an owner builder, and then secondly, do you really want to learn by trial and error, because it's going to be really, really expensive during the process of making it happen? And thirdly, are you willing to warranty it and have the legal liability that a builder would have? Obviously, builders have all the insurance and all the building indemnity insurance and all the different insurances to try and cover themselves in case something goes wrong down the track. If you're doing it yourself, you don't have any of those insurances to cover you. So if something goes wrong and you're not, you have done something that's not to the council requirements or legal requirements, then you're responsible. And how are you going to deal with that? Especially if you've sold the house off to somebody else and there's major cracking in the house, and then the builders say, hey, we're not liable because we didn't do the stormwater. Legally, and that person can come back to you because you did the stormwater and claim for all the damages, and that might be 20, 30, 40, 50, or even more $1,000 to repair all that damage. And it's definitely not something you're going to want. And so obviously, you're trying to save yourself $1,000 or so by just doing it yourself. Down the track, you've got the responsibility of, potentially tens, if not more, of thousands of dollars that are going to come back to haunt you. So hopefully that's made you second. Have a good think about whether it's actually worth you trying to do it yourself, and whether it's worth the hassle. Again, like I said, if it's going to be fun, that's great, but really understand that fun does have responsibilities and obligations associated with it. So Hopefully you've liked what I had to say. If you haven't liked what I had to say, then still click on the like button because I really appreciate it. And if you know someone that's thinking about building a house themselves, then click on the share button because I'm sure they'll find it interesting. And yeah, maybe just make them really think about what they're doing and whether it's the right thing for them. And if you've got a comment or if you've got something, you know someone that's built before and they've had some experiences in the past, I look forward to hearing from your comments. And yeah, look forward to catching you guys again soon. Thanks. Bye for now.